eastern Colorado, 7-foot snowdrifts and hurricane-force winds from a spring snowstorm that has rolled in and closed down highways across the plains. This is Akron in Washington County, where our Corey Reppenhagen is currently stranded. Out east of there in Yuma County, deputies are pleading with people not to drive around those road-closed barricade signs.
Right now we're experiencing zero visibility in a lot of places. High winds. The barricades are down for a reason, folks. Stay home at all costs. Do not try to come out on the streets. You're only putting yourself and others' safety in danger. What we're dealing with today, I'll give you just a little glimpse.
That is some effective show and tell right there. Don't plan on driving east anytime soon. There are parts of I-70, I-76, Highway 34 all closed between the metro area and the state line. Republican Senator Cory Gardner proudly proclaimed today that he had gotten a promise from President Trump that the president will not come after legal marijuana in Colorado. So funny thing, candidate Trump made the exact same promise to our Brandon Rittiman 2 years ago before President Trump changed his position. So perhaps our senator will have better luck holding the president to his word.
You were holding up DOJ nominations over this because President Trump, as a candidate, made a promise in an interview with us that he wasn't going to mess with states.
I wouldn't do that, no.
So you think Colorado should be able to do what it's doing?
No, I think it's up to the states, yeah. I'm a states person. I think it should be up to the states, absolutely.
Aren't we back to square one with just the president and a promise?
Yeah. Well, if you look at what has happened, the president said during the campaign, when he was not president of the United States, that he supported states' rights and state solutions. A lot of things happened during that time, including a decision by the Attorney General to reverse the Cole Memorandum. So here we have the president of the United States saying that Colorado's industry will be protected. So basically putting back in place the protections Colorado industry had that were taken away several months ago.
The dim view of your announcement today would be, though, that you didn't get anything concrete from the president, just words.
Well, I suppose if you want to oppose anything and everything somebody does, you could say that the press secretary, the president of the United States, standing in the White House press conference saying that the president has made an agreement to commit to the protection of Colorado's industry and to pass legislation to solve this problem isn't enough. But they may be the same people that would argue that if you said the sun was warm, they'd disagree.
So you feel very certain that we're not going to have any entanglements with the federal government cracking down on our legal industry?
Legal industry, that's the president's commitment.
So you heard Brandon mention that Senator Gardner was holding up the president's Justice Department nominees until they made the deal. That hold is now dropped. So the president has the all clear for nominees in case he, decides that he wants to fire a bunch of people in the Justice Department and replace them with new folks. So just saying. We'd hope to get you some clarification on the mix-up that caused a man in Texas to be mistaken for an escaped prisoner out of Colorado back in 1996, a mistake that was not caught until this guy was hauled all the way up to Colorado from Texas. He'd been in custody for weeks. But today, the Department of Corrections said it would not be able to answer any of our questions until next week. They may be thinking that we will forget or we will move on, but we set a calendar reminder, so don't worry, we're on it. If parents in a struggling school district had known that the school board was going to cut a fat check to the superintendent, well, you can bet that some of those people would have had something to say about that. But it was just kind of slipped onto the agenda at the last moment. Steve Steger shows us what went down in Commerce City.
Here's how it went down at Tuesday's Adams 14 school board meeting. The room was packed, full of people at the start, many of them worried about the future of the district's biliteracy program. They may have missed this right after the pledge.
I need a motion to amend the agenda, first of all, this evening.
And that issue wouldn't be brought up again for another hour and a half when the room was much emptier.
Dr. Abrego was to receive a 2.5-step increase at the end of the 2016-17 school year.
What the board ended up approving by a 3-2 vote was an increase to the superintendent's pay by about $4,000 and a $25,000 one-time contribution to his retirement plan. a move that came as a surprise to a lot of parents.
It makes it seem as though the superintendent is doing an excellent job and trying to turn the district around, and he's not.
Janet Estrada didn't know that this was on the table in her son's school district.
I would have gone to the board meeting again and spoke about a lot of the issues that are going on that need improvement in the district.
Colorado's Sunshine Law requires public bodies to post agendas 24 hours before a public meeting. Jeff Roberts, chair of the Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition, admits changes can be made.
It's considered to be a kind of a flexible standard. And there are things that come up, but they should be related to something on the agenda.
This appeared to have no relation to an item on the agenda.
We're as transparent as we can be with the district.
So we asked the board president.
It was brought to our attention that it hadn't gotten done, so now it was time to get it done.
Could you have waited a couple of weeks to put it on another agenda?
Sure, we probably could have waited.
Timio Archuleta says this is a regular practice for the Adams 14 School Board, and he says changes are always announced at the beginning of the meeting when people are there. When I asked him, what about the people who aren't there but who may be interested?
They don't know exactly what's on the agenda because we amend it from time to time. So they may get a list of what our agenda items are, but then they may change.
Now, Archuleta says this raise in contribution was supposed to go to the superintendent last year, so they wanted to do this quickly. They are still looking into a new evaluation practice for the superintendent here. But the real question is anyone going to challenge this in court? And the interesting answer is if it is challenged and it's found that the district was wrong, although their attorney says they're following the books. Yeah. If it's proved that the district is wrong, the Freedom of Information Coalition says a judge would likely just say, don't do it again.
No more surprises maybe, but it's not going to change anything. Interesting. All right, thank you, Steve. Porter Hospital is facing the first of what could be a string of lawsuits over infections that followed a sterilization issue in some of the surgical suites. 5,800 patients at Porter were notified of the lapse between the summer of 2016 and earlier this month. The hospital warned that patients who had orthopedic or spine surgery might have been infected with HIV or hepatitis B or C. Porter says it has not been able to directly link any of the known infection cases to those sterilization issues. If you missed this week's gubernatorial debates, I can't blame you. I mean, Nuggets and Avs games, am I right? All right. But let me get you caught up with 5 takeaways then. Takeaway number 5. The front-runners are ducking debates as of now. Only Democrat Kerry Kennedy out of the front-running pack would debate. Democrat Jared Polis and Republicans Walker Stapleton and Cynthia Kaufman would not. We'll have to see if they keep playing hide-and-seek with tough questions once the primary ballots are set. Takeaway number 4. Democrats' outrage over sexual harassment does not extend to Denver Mayor Michael Hancock. Take a look.
For the first time tonight, I'm going to ask you for a show of hands on where you would have come down on the votes taken by Republicans and Democrats in the state legislature. By a show of hands, how many of you supported the expulsion of Representative Steve Lebsock from the House for sexual harassment? By a show of hands, how many of you supported the attempted expulsion of State Senator Randy Baumgartner from the State Senate for sexual harassment? Show of hands, how many of you believe that there should be serious consequences for Denver Mayor Michael Hancock for sexual harassment?
Yes, that was a gasp and a murmur that you heard from a crowd solely made up of their own supporters. Takeaway number 3 from our debates. Republicans had some real policy differences and were willing to criticize each other, whereas we saw the Democrats pretty much in lockstep on policy issues. Takeaway number 2. Transportation funding is a big issue. It is a tricky topic, but Republican candidate Victor Mitchell's breathtaking claim last night about CDOT does not appear to be true.
This bureaucracy may be the most poorly managed bureaucracy in state government today. They have a $1.6 billion budget, but more than 70% of their total budget goes to overhead, and a great amount of that is waste.
Our Verify team looked at Mitchell's claim that 70% of the CDOT budget goes to overhead and a lot of it's wasted. Well, it doesn't even appear to be close. For starters, 43% of the budget goes to outside contractors for road and bridge work. Another 10% goes to snow removal. So we are already down below 50% before we delve deeper into what could even be considered overhead. And takeaway number 1 from our debates. The Republican candidates agreed, somewhat begrudgingly, that the vast majority of people who are in Colorado illegally should be allowed to stay. They all agreed last night that only those with convictions for violent crimes should be deported. So both primary races for governor should thin out this weekend a bit with the state party assemblies. Democrats are at First Bank Center in Broomfield. Republicans are at the Coors Event Center in Boulder. That could be wild at that Republican assembly. Our team will be covering both throughout the weekend, keeping you updated on air and online. This morning's release of Colorado's fire outlook for the coming season contained references to years that will make you cringe, 2012 and 2013. Governor said we could be in for the worst year for wildfires since those years that we saw the devastating Black Forest and Waldo Canyon fires. The state is currently negotiating a new contract with the global supertanker so that they can use the world's largest firefighting aircraft. We've covered it here on Next. It's based in the Springs, but previously had been used to fight fires elsewhere. Hot and then cold and then hot again. Your feelings about this news program and also our forecast. Our next question deals with where you are legally allowed to grill this summer. And our series Confessions of a Parent continues with a mother who begs you to stop saying one thing about her daughter. Next.
It may be Friday night in Denver, but there's just not a lot happening downtown. Off to the east, a different story. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin tracking a powerful spring storm producing blizzard conditions across northeastern Colorado. Those conditions will spread into the Midwest tomorrow, and then severe weather. A big outbreak expected across the central and southern plain states where they're chasing tornadoes tonight. We're chasing the wind. Snow drifts 4 to 6 feet high under a blizzard warning zone that includes Sterling, Holyoke, Burlington, Lyman, these areas, with wind gusts in excess of 70 miles per hour. Some of the snow streaks heaviest off to the east, but all of the activity winding down tonight. The blizzard warning cancels out at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Difficult, if not impossible, travel east of Denver tonight and early tomorrow. But here, pretty nice. Cloudy, less wind tonight, lows in the 20s, low 50s tomorrow. Nice warm up on Sunday, back close to 80 degrees on Monday with a little more wind in the forecast by Tuesday of next week.
Kathy, thanks. So our next question comes from a viewer named Tom, who writes to us, my HOA just grills are not allowed on patios per City of Denver law. I have a Traeger wood pellet grill with no open flame, wondering if this is allowed. Sounds like a fancy grill, Tom. We're not here to judge you. You grill the way you want to grill, but Denver Fire doesn't want you to use that grill. Firefighters tell us the city code outlaws apartment patio use of anything with embers or sparks, any kind of combustible material like charcoal, or the pellets that your grill burns. The only type of grill allowed on apartment patios in Denver are those that can work with the 1-pound propane tanks, the little ones that you might bring camping. The standard 20-pound tanks, the ones you can exchange all over the place, and standard grills, those you are not supposed to be using on patios and balconies in Denver. Ashley's letter to Next broke our hearts, but her confession of a parent will make you smile. And we end our week with good news, the generosity of a stranger. Next. All month, we are sharing confessions of a parent, busting through the myths of picture-perfect parenting that so many people paint on social media. And a good number of you have written to us with your confessions. There was Noah, who talked about raising his children after the deaths of his parents. Noah said, it's hard to try and live up to the memory of how they raised me. There was Linda, who told us, I am a child of abuse by my father. I vowed not to pass the sins of my father to my sons. And Veronica, who said for as much as she and her mom friends love their kids, sometimes it seems as though we have lost ourselves. Tonight, the confession of a parent named Ashley, who wrote to us saying, every day I am reminded that my body failed my child.
Hi, big girl. Hi. How are you? What's going on? You want to say hi?
My name is Ashley Bond. I am the mother of Kaylee. She is a 6-month-old preemie. This is my confession. This is different. My child stopped growing at 31 weeks. She was born just under 4 pounds. But she was so small when she was born that she kind of fell right out, honestly. The first comment I always get is, oh, she's so small. For 6 months old, she's so tiny. I feel afraid of every single day, of every single breath, of every single time I put her down. I have no control over what is going to happen. Don't tell me how small she is. Tell me how big she is, how wonderful she is, how happy she is, how well behaved she is, for all I care. Just don't look at me and tell me how small she is. Don't tell me that you're sorry for me for having to go through this. I wouldn't change a thing. This is my life. This is my everyday. Yeah, just be understanding that she's different and she's going to grow differently and she's going to develop differently. I don't need somebody else telling me how different she is and how small she is. She's great. She's thriving. She's beautiful. She's wonderful, as all of our preemie kids are.
If you're willing to sit down and confess something about being a parent that you think the rest of Colorado should hear, let us know. Email next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext. May I make a recommendation? Point you towards something that did not come from us but is absolutely worth your time. If you plan on watching the Boston Marathon Monday, read the New York Times story on Tim Don and keep an eye out for him. He's the world record holder for the Ironman triathlon. He lives in Boulder. But that is him recovering from a catastrophic accident suffered in Hawaii 6 months ago, hit by a car while training for an event. He spent 3 months in a halo with titanium pins in his skull, metal bars attached to his shoulders. Tim's first test is Monday, when he hopes to run the marathon in 2 hours and 50 minutes, the same time he ran when he set the world record last May. Quite the inspiration. There's a link to that story on the Next Facebook page. This week, your good news is told through the eyes of an elementary school classroom that received a nice surprise. And you're feeling feisty with the feedback for a Friday. That's next. It is Friday, which means we're ending the work week with your good news as always. Today we went to Normandy Elementary School in Littleton to a classroom that just received a generous donation. Mrs. Jordan's 4th grade class shares its good news.
You're welcome. This is such a feel-good moment. I told the kids that a stranger...
That was me. I always read ahead.
...brought books into our classroom, and they were all amazed. I'm Carrie Jordan. I am a 4th grade teacher here at Normandy Elementary School. We are in Jeffco Public Schools, and I created a good problem in my classroom.
Mom kisses me, and I hurry to class.
I created a love for reading, but I didn't have enough books. And on Nextdoor.com, I had an idea. Let me put out there, hey, I'm in search of these books for my classroom. One person replied, and it was Mrs. Naughton, and she goes, hey, I love reading. I want to help your kids, and I want to foster their love of learning. So I sent 4 books to your classroom, and I was just thrilled.
I have so many friends that are teachers, and I know what a hard time they have getting resources, and I think it's such a shame that they're spending their own money or that they're having to ask in anonymous online forums for help. They sound like school stories and stories about adversity and rising to the occasion when facing adversity at this age.
You can borrow it. I think the life skills are what it's all about. Can you be a good person, not your IQ?
And the good people outnumber the bad, even if you can't always tell from the news. We finish with your feedback on this Friday. Chris in Estes Park writes in, hi, just wondered where you get all of your coats and why all of them are too small for you. Chris, as we've discussed here before, I'm trying to shed some baby weight, but I appreciate your continued concern. Don't worry about it. It's not like I could use a compliment from time to time or anything like that. Let's see what we have from Rich. Rich writes, I very much wanted to watch the debates, but the mouth was so obnoxious I could not stand to watch. Kyle is not an asset to you. He is a detriment. What an egotistical jack. Thank you, Rich. You didn't call me fat. I really needed that. Have a great weekend. I will see you next time.